Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another spicy episode of the Sandy Stream with Lucius Cole. If you like this type of content, go down below, like, subscribe, share, and of course leave a comment if you think I deserve it. The Cole Factory and the Cole Train on our way to 1,000 Patriots strong, thanks to people like you watching content like this. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, today's show is an absolute cluster bomb of the complete deterioration of the United States Constitution and our Bill of Rights. We are being under a full-on assault by not only the technocracy, big media, the big banks, and now our politicians are simply cowtailing and not even willing to fight for us. This is what America has become, and is truly Orwellian. Speaking of Orwellian, take a look at one of the recent posts by YouTube on their official blog, and I'm going to be going through this, and I believe I'll be doing a full video on this because this is the most brazen act of tyranny in terms of big tech and the technocracy that I have ever seen in my entire life. It started off very, very simple, guys. Of course, it started with the Nazis. It started with the radicals. It started with the violent types. And everybody stayed silent. They're like, you know what? We don't really want people talking about that. You know what? We're not really going to go out of our way to defend these type of people, so they're gone, right? Then the bar moves a little bit more to the left. And they say, you know what? People like Alex Jones, who's putting out misinformation, people like Gavin McInnes, people like Milo Yiannopoulos, we can't have these people going out there and spreading their particular rhetoric. It's too dangerous, right? So then they banned those people, although I do believe Milo is still on YouTube right now. And it's just like, when are we going to stand up and fight? This is absolute insanity to me. For those of you who haven't seen, supporting the 2020 U.S. election, I'm going to read this thing verbatim. It's absolutely disgusting. Over the past few weeks and months, we've been coming to YouTube to learn more about where and how to vote, learning more about a candidate or an issue. We've seen news organizations grow their audience, and we've seen people turn on to YouTube for the latest election results or simply follow a historic event with the highest voting turnout in over a century in the United States. Our main goal into the election season was to make sure we're connecting people with authoritative information while also limiting the reach of misinformation and removing harmful content. The work here is ongoing, and we wanted to provide you with an update. Removing content that violates our policies. Take a look, guys. Our community guidelines prohibit spam, scams, or manipulated media, coordinated influence operations, and any content that seeks to incite violence. Since September, we terminated over 8,000 channels and thousands of harmful and misleading election-related videos violating our existing policies. Over 77% of those videos that were removed were taken down before they ever reached 100 views. We also work to make sure that the line between the removed and what is allowed is drawn in the right place. Oh, interesting. Our policies prohibit misleading viewers about where and how to vote. We also disallow content alleging widespread fraud or errors changing the outcome of the historical U.S. presidential election. However, in some cases, that has meant allowing controversial views on the outcome or processing the counting of votes of the current election as election officials have worked to finalize counts. Yesterday was the safe harbor deadline for the U.S. presidential election, and enough states have certified the election results to determine a president-elect. Given that, we will start to remove any piece of content uploaded today or any time after that misleads people by alleging that widespread fraud or errors changed the outcome of the 2020 U.S. presidential election in line with their approach towards historical U.S. presidential elections. For example, we will remove videos claiming a presidential candidate won the election due to widespread software glitches or counting errors. We will begin enforcing this policy today, and we will ramp it up in the weeks to come. As always, news coverage and commentary on these issues can remain on our site if there's sufficient education, documentary, scientific, or artistic context. This is an absolute attack on our free speech. There hasn't been a single court that has actually been willing to take up the evidence. Everything has been pushed to SCOTUS at this point, and I will talk about the Texas case later in this episode. This is absolute insanity. This is Orwellian. This is tyranny. This is the absolute breakdown of a society, not allowing for free speech and people to challenge the already established narrative. This is how you create war. This is how you create violence. When people are not allowed to speak and not allowed to actually look into the information and spread that information around, This leads to war. This leads to violence. YouTube, you are stepping on a landmine and you don't even realize it. There are plenty of people that you are radicalizing by doing something like this. You are going to be the ones to make people violent. This type of stuff is what's going to radicalize people. Banning them, censoring them, silencing them, destroying their careers. This is absolute tyranny. I can't put it any better than that. You can't question the legitimacy of the election after a basically blood on the hands video was posted highlighting people continuing to count votes after poll watchers were forced to leave, told to leave, stating that they were going to stop counting only to continue counting into the night. And the spike for Biden, just coincidentally in Georgia, happening at the exact same time those votes were tabulated. And you're not allowed to question that? You're not allowed to say, hey, this looks a little weird, this looks a little eerie? Hello? Excuse me? No, the reason why they don't want us to look at the ballots, they don't want us to verify the signatures, and they say that we are going out there trying to disenfranchise people from voting? No, we're trying to make sure that the people that they are saying voted were the ones who actually put their name on that ballot. That's what we want to know. What are they hiding? They work for us. Unbelievable. So I don't even know, will this video even make it? Will this video even make it? This is what? Given everything going on right now, with the SCOTUS case being pushed, we're in current litigation. There is no office of the president-elect. The media does not decide when the president is the president. It happens in January when he's actually sworn in. There's pending litigation on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And you're going to tell me that we're not allowed to talk about it? Unbelievable. Our rights are being eroded and destroyed. Why do these people have platform protection? I can go on my phone right now. I can make a phone call. I can talk about election fraud all that I want, and nothing happens. You know why? They can't get sued for what I say on here because I'm using their service, which is under platform protections. Those same protections that YouTube uses to indiscriminately censor speech that they don't agree with. All in the name of trust and safety. Very similar to the council in 1984. The Ministry of Truth. And then they use these fact checkers as their means to try to propel a narrative. Bought and sold. Most owned by Media Matters or George Soros money. And yet they are the ones who gets to decide what is true and false. The fact check story that came out, whether you're talking about the Feinstein spy case that happened, whether you're talking about the ballots that were counted late into the night in Georgia, those were all debunked. These were all debunked, guys. Debunked. It's all debunked. Absolute insanity. I cannot believe this. And if things weren't already, like, the levels of skepticism, and this is the thing. You know what? We'll get into that later in the episode. So, this is what happens when the Democrats are reportedly winning, okay? And this is coming from Michigan Democratic State Representative Cynthia Johnson, who threatened Donald Trump supporters in a Facebook Live video Tuesday, saying it is a warning message to those who support the president. She's calling for war. And if you don't believe me, take a look at what she has to say.
This is just a warning to you Trumpers.
Just a warning, guys.
Be careful. Walk lightly. We ain't playing with you.
We're not playing with you.
Enough of the shenanigans. Enough is enough. And for those of you who are soldiers, you know how to do it. Do it right. Be in order. make them pay. I love y'all. Bye-bye.
Oh, okay. So we're just going to use our military might. And since we're, kind of slowing down the wars and dropping the warheads on foreheads and no longer going after Syria and no longer arming, Al Qaeda, as far as we know, arming ISIS and rebel groups over in the Middle East, now we're going to use that military might, that giant superpower that we generated under Donald Trump. What we're going to use is we're going to use those soldiers to then go after United States citizens. And believe me, I know Barack Obama was the first one to actually allow for a United States citizen, 16 years old, by the way, to actually be drone striked. So no rights, no nothing, American citizen, just kill him. Drop a bomb at a wedding, whatever. No big deal, guys. This is what they think of us. This is their unity they're talking about. It's about rounding us up and throwing us in concentration camps. And they call us the Nazis. You don't want a war. I promise you. I promise you. You do not want a war with Trump supporters. Be careful with what you say. Be very, very careful with the words that you say. Because stuff like this is not taken lightly. And there's plenty of people just like me, red-blooded Americans, that will die for this country. So when you talk about soldiers, I hope you understand that a majority of soldiers are Trump supporters. So be very careful with what you say, because you might just come to regret it. Speaking of what's going on right now, communist China, ladies and gentlemen, just seems to somehow, some way, find its nice little tentacles into the Democrat Party. And let's be fair, guys. And I really want to make this distinction at this point. This is no longer left and right. This is establishment, neocons, and neolibs. And communists, socialists, etc. That's one party. That's the uniparty right there. And then there's Americans and freedom fighters and revolutionaries. That's where the line is being created. So we need to move away from this left-right paradigm, because there's plenty of people on the left who are totally sane, maybe just a little bit off in what we believe, their own types of political acumen and what they actually believe. But at the end of the day, they believe in freedom. And that's what we need to look for. We can talk about, whether or not we should spend money on this, spend money on that, healthcare, abortion, etc., all that stuff. None of that is going to matter if we are living under a complete and total tyranny, technocracy that silences us. And then when we actually move to a different platform, which is what the left always says, they say, oh, you're being censored. Well, it's my private platform. It's my private platform. It's my private platform, don't you know? They can do what they want. They can do what they like. It's a private platform. Okay, so what do? We're like, okay, we're leaving. We're going to Rumble. We're going to Parler. We're going to Odyssey. We're going to BitChute. And then what do? You then try to get those banned. You then try to get those removed from the App Store. You then go and have groups like Media Matters seek out PayPal to make sure that people can't bank within them, within those particular platforms. So don't tell me, create your private platform, because you don't care about that. It's not about the platform. It's about what we're saying, and you don't like it. Just admit it. Just admit that you're a tyrannical bitch, that you love tyranny, that you were the Nazis that were gassing the Jews. Well, I can't even say that. That's a different story. You were the Nazis, and you were the one rounding the people up, and just admit it. Just admit it, because that's what you are. You're the monsters. The monsters that you claim to be fighting, that's you. That's you. I think it was Nietzsche, who specifically said, be careful when fighting monsters lest you become one. Be careful when looking into the dark abyss when fighting monsters lest you become one. That's what you are. You are the monster. This perpetual victim status is absolutely absurd. Tyrants, traitors, cowards. With that said, guys, take a look at China getting its lovely little paws onto our politicians. And of course, Communist China spy infiltrated California politicians, including Russian hoaxer Eric Swalwell, Mr. Poopy Pants. Mr. Poopy Pants. A Chinese spy cultivated deep connections with U.S. Democratic politicians for years, including Representative Eric Swalwell of California, of course, California, to send political intelligence and personal information back to Communist China, according to reports by Axios. Axios reporters spoke to U.S. intelligence officials and former acquaintances of the spy, Fang Fang, or Christine Fang, to outline how, under the direction of China's Ministry of State, one of the country's primary spying agencies, she collected private information on U.S. bureaucrats, especially those in California's Bay Area. According to U.S. intelligence officials and foreign politicians between 2011 and 2015, Fang socialized, networked with Representative Judy Chu, and then Representative Mike Honda, campaigned for now Representative Ro Khanna, volunteered for Bill Harrison, the mayor of Fremont, California at the time, fundraised for people such as Representative Tulsi Gabbard, and in some cases developed romantic or sexual relationships with politicians to gain intelligence and send it back to her handlers. Now, you get the point, guys. We are being infiltrated. And if you actually look at programs, whether it be Mossad or the CIA or the, whatever, choose a intelligence agency, basically. The first thing you do in order to go into a country and enact your own influence or take over that country from within, the first thing you do is you get a hold of the politicians. The next thing you do is, well, then this kind of goes in tandem. The next thing that you do is you create a base of operations, which was one of the undercurrents of what was going on between Hunter Biden and China. China actually going in and buying massive amounts of American land. So then that way they will have a safe house whenever their spies come over here in order to gather intel. And this is what we're seeing, guys. And the problem is, this isn't the first time. But let's take a little bit of brevity here, and let's take a look at Donald Trump Jr. rather, really breaking it down about Eric Swalwell any more than I possibly could. Take a look.
We shouldn't be surprised about the media being silent on this issue, which is truly a national security threat, while this man sits on the House Intelligence Committee. But we also shouldn't be surprised that someone who basically may have soiled himself on national TV also allowed his agency and his group to be infiltrated by a Chinese spy. So thank you for calling out Swalwell as well.
Me love you long time. Me love you long time. I mean, with a name like Fang Fang. Oh my god, guys. It's like these politicians are so stupid. It's like, and the thing is too, is it makes you wonder, is this on purpose? Like, do they know what they're doing? I mean, what is the number one thing for blackmail? When you have all the money you need in the world, right? Think about these billionaires or even millionaires, right? They don't really need anything. They've given to their families pretty much everything they would ever desire. They have a huge plot of land. They have basically a huge well-paying job. They're getting the juiciest of juicy lobbying dollars in Washington, D.C. They're living in areas where they don't have any resistance whatsoever. Again, this is coming from California. You'll see a bit more about California in a second. And of course, this man is on the House Intelligence Committee. And this woman apparently is sleeping with this man, married man, by the way. And of course, I'm totally fine with that if the wife's okay with it. But call me crazy. Doesn't seem like this is what's happening here. But even more so than that, what we need to understand is that China is our true rival. China is America's true enemy. And I use the word enemy very lightly because I'm particularly talking about the CCP. The people of China I could care less about. I love Chinese people, whatever. That I don't care about that. I'm talking about their government. Just like our government. Orwellian in nature. I don't know, guys. And of course, it continues on. I don't know if you guys remember this from, I believe it was a couple of years ago. Yeah, 2018. Senator Dianne Feinstein's ties to China go way deeper than the alleged office spy. I sometimes say that in my last life, maybe I was Chinese. And this is a quote by Senator Dianne Feinstein. As a media intelligence agency and political scrutiny of foreign meddling is seemingly at its apex, a story with big national security implications involving a high ranking senator with access to America's most sensitive intelligence information has been hiding in plain sight. Story involves China and senior U.S. senators from California and former chair of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Democrat Dianne Feinstein. It was buried 8 paragraphs into a recent Politico expose on foreign efforts to infiltrate Silicon Valley as a passing example of political espionage. Former intelligence officials said Chinese intelligence once recruited a staff member at California office of U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, and the source reported back to China about local politics. Spokesman for Feinstein said the office doesn't comment on personal matters or investigations, but noted that no Feinstein staffer in California has ever had a security clearance. So what? So what? He's a staffer. He works with your computer systems. He just needs a thumb drive. You don't think China has what they need? I mean, take a look what happened in terms of Donald Trump making it illegal. I forget the company off the top of my head, but made it illegal to have those type of computer parts inside of our computers because it can be used for hacking. I mean, one crazy thing to see, Norse used to post this quite a bit. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's basically a map which shows all of the cyber attacks happening in real time all across the world. And it literally looks like complete and total warfare. The DDoS attacks, the malicious links, the words, the worms, everything is absolute insanity. It really gives you a great understanding of who's actually attacking who, what's going on in terms of the political arena, and what's actually happening that's not being said. What's happening under the cover of darkness in terms of the information warfare. All right, guys, now I have to tread lightly on this because apparently you're not even allowed to talk about this type of stuff. You're not allowed to talk about pending litigation right now in SCOTUS, in the Supreme Court of the United States, about whether or not this was a legitimate election or not. And let's just take a look. A 2020 election redo, which would be great. Here in 4 states, here are all the details about the Texas suit. I'm just going to go over the bullet points. The complaint accuses Pennsylvania Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar, among many other things, without legislative approval, unilaterally abrogating Pennsylvania statutes that require signature verification for absentee or mail-in ballots. These changes were not ratified by the Pennsylvania legislature. Similarly, the complaint describes how Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, also without legislative approval, unilaterally abrogated Georgia's statute governing the signature verification process for absentee ballots. Michigan, the complaint states that Michigan Secretary of State Jacqueline Benson abrogated Michigan's election statutes related to absentee ballot application and signature verification. And lastly, Wisconsin. The Wisconsin's Elections Commission made similar changes in state laws without the permission of the legislature that weekend or did away with established security procedures put in place by the Wisconsin legislature to ensure absentee ballot integrity. Bit of a mouthful. Long story short, they're saying this is not a legit election. They're saying that this entire process is bunk. They're saying that given that we're not allowed to audit the signatures. And for those of you who haven't checked out Barnes Law and Viva Frei, Barnes Law brought this up quite a bit. He was actually sent down to Georgia where there was some brief talk about them going in and taking a look at the Dominion machines, right? And what actually ended up happening was he was like, no, I want a signature audit. That's what I want. I want a signature audit. And that's when the red alarms from these politicians and these staffers started to go up. Because they didn't want him to have the capacity and the capability to actually go in there and verify the signatures. Because it would expose the fact that many of the votes that came in weren't from the actual people that voted. And here's your scientific study, YouTube. In Arizona, the Democrat who was assigned to actually look through the absentee ballots of a sample that was provided in court stated that 11% of the ballots were fraudulent or had discrepancies. I'm confusion. And that's why they're fine with a recount and not fine with an audit. This is YouTube right now. And this is what America will be very, very soon if we don't get our head out of our asses. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at war. And if SCOTUS doesn't take this seriously, if they are not willing to actually take up this particular case and actually listen to what's being presented, then 50% of the electorate is not going to have faith in the election process ever again. Not only that, but if they're not willing to provide relief to what is clearly, through the video, happening in Georgia, illegal. Now, whether or not you want to say what they did, whether or not they were actually counting legit ballots or not, okay. But the fact that they did it without poll watchers there to verify the process is what also makes it illegal. And that's what they don't want to talk about. And this is why I have been so brutal on the GOP lately. I have been brutal on Trump. I have been brutal on the GOP. I have been brutal on Q. And everyone is mad. Anyone that on any of my other social medias is very angry at me. We do not need PSYOP informations and people inside of our movement not sticking to the facts. You can get mad at me all you want about the Q stuff. It's BS. Barr's not here to save us. Durham's not here to save us. Powell's not here to save us. Wood's not here to save us. I unfollowed them a couple days ago. Done with them. It's all rhetoric. It's the left encapsulated. Give me some evidence that we can use in court to actually have relief and provide a win for Trump in this election. And on top of that, Trump, what are you doing? Pardon Assange. Pardon Snowden. Pardon nonviolent drug offenders. Do what you said you were going to do. Stop pandering to these Federalists. The Federalist Society is what is surrounding Trump. He kicked out Bannon. He kicked out Flynn. He removed probably the only populists that would have had his back in the White House. And then he surrounded himself with the same swamp that he vowed to drain. We need to have our foot and our finger on the pulse of our politicians, on our side, apparently. Because only with our rhetoric and only with our pressure will they actually change their stances. That's what happened to Crenshaw. That's what happened to influencers like Charlie Kirk, who were basically open immigration. I don't know, guys. If SCOTUS refuses to take in this particular case, not willing to provide relief, secession. Secession. Because if you're not willing to actually look at the evidence and you're not willing to provide relief, or at least, at the very least, look at the case and look at the merits of the case, then this is no longer a republic. You are no longer a federal government that is trying to unite the states. You're picking and choosing winners and losers. And we won't have that. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point. And of course, hopefully everything's always so dramatized anyway. I try not to, take anything out of context. But again, put our politicians' feet to the fire. For those of you who haven't called your Secretary of State, or if your particular state hasn't joined in the lawsuit along with Texas, call your Secretary of State, call your governor, call your election officials, call everyone. Show up, and let's make this thing happen. My name is Lucius Cole of the Sandy Stream. If you like this type of content, go down below, like, subscribe, share, and of course leave a comment if you think I deserve it. The Cole Factory and the Cole Train on our way to 1,000 Patriots strong. Thanks to people like you watching content like this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Love ya. Peace. Cole Train. Choo-choo!